Hello, my spooky friends, and welcome to the Paranormal Podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And today, I am extremely blessed to have a great guest on the show. Her name is Terri Jay. She's an intuitive story. So welcome, Terri.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk with you.
Thank you. So let's get right into it, Terri. I'm going to read a little bit off your bio, off your website, and my spooky friends, this will be all as you know as you listen to me. On the episode notes, please reach out to Terri. She'll talk a little bit more, obviously, during this episode of how she can help you in many, many, many ways. So I am extremely excited about this too. So this is really interesting to me because I always start with this is Terri, she believes that that all of us are born with intuitive abilities, which I think is really interesting. And intuition is just one part of the spiritual senses with clairvoyance, and I'll have you explain that, and also clairaudience and all these other clair words that you can explain that allow us to pick up the higher vibrations which I didn't know this, and you can explain this. I'll pause after this one, but physics tells us that everything in the universe has a vibration or frequency. So let's stop there. I've heard about this, but explain that to my spooky friends, Terri. What does that mean that all of us have a vibration or a frequency?
We have to remember everything is physics, even what we call source energy, which, a lot of people, that's their word for God. Yeah. And so we have to remember, if you're talking about physics, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. So I know, I'm not even going to say I believe, but I know that people that do this, all they're doing is picking up on vibrations and frequencies that other people miss. That's all they're doing. There isn't one of us that hasn't thought about somebody that we haven't heard from in a while, and the phone rings and it's them.
Right.
Everybody does it. Everybody's doing it. But what I like to do is teach people how to make the most of it, because most of us have the abilities, we're born with the abilities, and we shut them off in childhood. So it's not even learning something new. It's just turning them back on.
Yeah. I love that because that's one of the biggest things I think people don't understand is we're all born with gifts, but it's not like riding a bike, right? Let's say you rode a bike 10 years ago. You probably could ride a bike right now, whatever age you're at. You probably could get on,
Sure.
You might take a little bit, but you get on there, right? This, a lot of people don't want to develop that skill, because they just kind of push it down. Like they feel weird. Like speaking to other mediums and intuitives and so on and so forth, Terri, what they told me was it was really hard for them to explain eventually to their loved ones, I have a gift, right?
Yeah, but they're not gifts. They're not gifts.
Right, exactly. So explain that.
Well, if somebody tells me, oh, yes, I'm gifted and I have all of these gifts and I'm special, I want to go, yes, short bus special, probably, right? Because we're all born with them. We turn them off because somebody calls us on it. They go, you stop lying. Grandpa's not in the corner. And we're going, but Grandpa. No, Grandpa's in heaven. Stop lying. We get in trouble for using those abilities sometimes. I never call them gifts. I always call them abilities because we all have them.
I love that. And I always tell this story all the time, not to get off on our first tangent, which might be a many, but my mom, for example, she could meet a person and immediately tell if that person's like, for lack of a better word, good or bad.
Sure.
And she was never wrong. She could.
No.
And it was really, really interesting because she would meet people. Like my mom was a lovely person. She was just.
She is.
I can't see it.
She really is. Right?
And I said, Mom, at one time, come on, Mom. She'd meet a girlfriend, right? And she'd be like, sorry, hon, that's the one that's going to work out for you. And she would just be like, Mom. And then a month later, we're broken up.
Right.
Other things, she'd meet people and be like, yeah, I don't like that person. And she'd give me a reason why. And I have given that gift. I can meet someone and be like, this is not going to work. And it's funny that you mentioned vibrations because I talked to one of my a previous guest on the show, and she mentioned that. She says, well, your vibrations, the way she said it, and I'm misquoting here, and please explain it better than I'm going to explain it, Terri. But she says, your vibrations are just they're not in sync, basically. Like they're
Right.
kind of repelling each other. So explain that, how I can meet a person and we like hit it off and we're like best friends. And then I meet another person and it's like, sorry, man, I don't like you. And
Well,
we didn't say anything.
we're always looking for that frequency that matches our own. And we don't even know that we're doing that. But we want someone with a like frequency. I mean, we think about this. Dogs can read people all the time. And
Yes.
you know, if my dogs don't like somebody, I'm having nothing to do with them because that's exactly what they're doing is reading that person's energy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I mean, really, we have the ability to do the same thing. Think about having a conversation, a face-to-face conversation with someone, and you find yourself having to take a step back all the time.
Yes.
Because their energy is actually pushing on you because they're trying to like rope you in or control you or something. And they're not doing it consciously, but it repels us. So we find ourselves taking a step back all the time. That happens to a lot of people and they go, that was weird, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not for me.
Yeah. It's really bizarre because you just think like my wife, she doesn't have that gift. She just, luckily, she's a very loving person.
Yeah.
But she'll talk to some people and they'll kind of run her over, for lack of a better word. And I'll say, hun, I told you that person is a jerk. I told you that. Why are you still letting this happen? She goes, you're being judgmental. You're just, you need to stop that because that's not fair to you.
No.
Right. Right. And I explained it to her many, many, many times. And now I can show her this evidence too.
Yeah. And the other thing too, we're given that information for our own edification. And we can decide if we're going to go further with that person, like in a relationship or something, or in a business deal. You need this for business all the time. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yes.
And it's really fun. It's really fun. I've gone into it, like buy a truck. And the salesperson will go, well, we're into it this much money. And I go, no, you're not. You're only in it this much. And he'll go, they look around. Am I being pranked?
Yeah.
How do you know that? And I go, because I'm an intuitive. I said, I can actually see your paper. And I heard your discussion with your sales manager about what you're in the vehicle and what you can let it go for. So we'll give you this much. And I always get it.
Well, I got to take you with me next time, Terri.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes in handy all the time. I mean, I read it. I use it every minute of every day. It's exhausting.
I bet, right? Yeah, that can be a thing where it's just so much coming at you.
Right.
That it's just, how do you learn to, filter it? It's kind of a difficult thing. So let me ask you that question. How do you filter it? I mean, it's like a wave coming at you and you're like, how do I ride this wave without drowning, basically?
I really try to limit my public exposure. I know that sounds funny, but I do my readings by phone all over the world. And people say, can we do Zoom or can we use something visual? And I go, nope, I don't want that. I want to tune in energetically, not physically. And I'm trying to get a TV show, and that's going to be a challenge for me because I will be doing them in person. But if I go to read a horse or something, I will put my back to the horse to read it. I won't even get close to it because I don't want the visual, because I'll judge it instead of reading it. And so we have to develop all these kinds of things. And if I'm in public, I don't make eye contact ever. My eyes are always down. I've had friends run into me with their shopping carts because I was not looking anywhere but at my grocery list, right?
Yeah.
And what are you doing? I go, trying not to look at people.
That's funny. That's really interesting to me. So
and the other thing too, I don't mean to interrupt, but the other thing too that's really weird about me, I can't listen to music.
Okay, why is that?
It's the last straw. Because there's so much information coming in all the time that music becomes the last straw. So other than that, I'm not weird.
Other than that, you're just fine.
Just talk to dead people, talk to people who can't communicate, do medical and veterinary intuition. I can tell people why they're sick and how to fix their disease and all that stuff. Have you seen the show, The Good Doctor?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you know how he sees holograms of things?
Mm-hmm.
That's me. I see holograms of things.
Wow.
That's really my life. I mean, for medical and veterinary intuition, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you with that. One of the things, and you've been doing this for over 30 years. Is that correct?
35.
35 years. Okay. And, it says here on your bio too, that you've helped people through financial health issues,
relationships.
So let me ask you this. What is the hardest? Financial, personal, like what is your hardest time you have to talk to people and be like, how do I do this? Without offending.
I would call it most challenging. Across the board, it's when the client is in resistance. Like I had a client who wanted me to tell her how to get back together with her drug addict, alcoholic ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
And she wanted me to just tell her how to do it. And he, of course, had dumped her because she was judgmental. Can you imagine?
No.
So anyway, I said, I can't tell you that because it's not in your best interest. What's in your best interest is to run as fast as you can away from this relationship. So, and I gave her lots of other things, but she was not happy with the results because I didn't tell her what she wanted to hear. And that's a terrible ethical thing that people that do this work, we're going to get what they want to hear. And we can't give it to them if it's not in their best interest. So we have to be ethical about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you overcome that? I mean, talking to that person, how do you tell a person listen, sweetie, this is, you know what I mean? How do you handle that? Because they're not listening at that time, right? They're closed off. How do you get back in?
A lot of times I tell them, you're not listening. You're wasting your time and, your money and my time. Do you want to be successful and happy and in a good relationship? If so, you need to listen. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever refused to do a reading for someone?
Yes.
And what was the situation?
Well, here's the thing. I need information to connect to what they want help with. And when I connect to somebody, it's like I've just walked into a bar at happy hour.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, what conversation do you want me to listen to so that I can glean information for you? So if people don't do predictions either, because they're unethical due to the law of attraction. And many, many people will still come to me and want predictions, knowing it's all over my website. I don't do predictions. They're unethical.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they'll say, tell me what you're getting. I stop the reading right there, refund their money. That's it. We're done.
So, but on your website, when you've talked about helped a handful of individuals with remote viewing to help locate lost pets.
Sure.
Find gold, water on maps.
Yeah.
Real estate decisions.
Sure.
Doesn't that kind of fall in the unethical? If you're saying the gold is over there and they don't find the gold, I mean, that's hey, lady.
I haven't had that happen.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. If somebody says, I'm working really hard to achieve this, and if I tell them, oh, yes, I see you achieving that, it's all going to just pan out beautifully, then they in their mind go, well, Terri said it's going to happen, so I can quit working so hard. And so then they quit working, so then it doesn't happen, then I'm the poop head, right?
Yeah.
And then if I see a vehicle accident and I go, oh, when you're in traffic, watch out for white vans, stay away from white vans. And they will be so focused in traffic on staying away from white vans, they will get in an accident. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the law of attraction. What you think about, you bring about.
Yes. And that has to do with, let me ask you this. A big buzzword maybe not as a buzzword as much as it used to be, is manifestation. You manifest your thoughts. What is your feeling on that? Because it's kind of, what's the difference between law of attraction and I'm manifesting I'm going to, I don't know, get a great job or whatever?
Manifestation is, the law of attraction is working with us or against us depending on our thoughts and our feelings. And that's my only problem I have with the law of attraction is it says think it and it'll happen. No, we've got to bring feelings into this too. Because if your thoughts are one thing and your feelings are diametrically opposed to that, whichever is stronger is going to prevail. So that's why you have to have both of those things in alignment in order to manifest, really.
And how would you don't have to get too deep into it, but how do you start with telling a person, they want a relationship? Relationships are a big deal, obviously.
Sure.
I want to find my husband or my wife or my partner. What do I do, Terri? How do I go about doing this?
Well, I always start my readings with how can I help? And then when they tell me, I'm looking to find a relationship, then what I'll do is show them where they're not ready and really don't want a relationship if that's the case. And so I give them homework to work on themselves and tools to work on themselves. And then I recommend putting on their vision board what they're looking for. I'm in a loving, committed relationship with a wonderful person who loves, honors, and cherishes me, because that cuts out all the bullshit, right?
Yes.
And then you put are happy, sexy, balanced, wealthy, clean, cooperative, funny, kind, whatever's important to you. And some people say like to ski or likes horses or whatever it is that they enjoy doing for fun, because shared interest is really what can make a relationship strong. And then I tell them, and this is the hard part, I ask them, are you all that you are seeking? And a lot of times they'll say, oh, no, I'm not. I'm not wealthy, or I'm not this. I'm not happy. I'm not healthy. And I go, then work on you so that you're a vibrational match.
Right.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And that's a big thing. I think people don't understand. They just think there's nothing wrong with them. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm perfect. Why isn't no one coming to me? Why am I not getting anybody? Look at me. I'm great. I'm sexy. I'm wonderful. Whatever, right? And you're like, are you?
Really, I think people have to do a lot of introspection. And the other thing, too, which is really critical when it comes to relationships, you can only love another human being or animal to the level and degree you love yourself.
Yes. Exactly.
So if you only love yourself a 4 or a 5, you're going to pull in somebody who only loves you a 4 or a 5. You got to love yourself a 10 the way Source does.
Yes. Terri, we're on the same frequency here. I can feel it.
Yeah, I can feel it. It's good.
No, this is really interesting to me. Just kind of switching gears here a little bit. That's kind of my way of a funny segue here. You've actually diagnosed problems with vehicles where you have no mechanical ability, and also help with code writing, like a software engineer, kind of like help figuring out what's going on. So I have never heard that before.
That's pretty weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
The vehicles, I just hear it. I just hear it's this. There's a thing in our diesel trucks. I'm not sure if it's in gas trucks, but it's called a TPS. And so one gal, she says, oh, my truck won't start. And I just went, it's initials. And I listened. I said, I heard TPS. And then I went, what is it? Oh, it's a throttle position sensor. And so she pulled into the shop and said, my throttle position sensor isn't working. And they go, do you mind if we check the vehicle? And of course, that's what it was.
I love it.
It's pretty fun to do that. And then as far as, I don't diagnose with people. I'll tell you what I'm getting, but I won't do it. I leave that up to the medical professionals. And I just say, it feels like this, right? Sure. I did this yesterday. A gal said she's just tired all the time. And I go, when did you hit your head and have a concussion? And she went, what? I said, yeah, you've got head trauma hormone syndrome.
Wow.
And she did. She recently had a really bad concussion. And that's a thing that isn't, you never go to a doctor where they go, unless you go in for the concussion, they'll never ask you again, have you had head trauma? Never. And it screws with your hormones horribly, male and female.
Yeah.
I talked to a 16-year-old boy. I said, you wrecked your dirt bike and you didn't have a helmet on. And he said, what? And of course, his mom was on the phone because I won't do minors without an adult present.
Which is smart.
And so you could hear her yelling at him, you rode your motorcycle without your helmet, which is pretty, I was laughing. And I said, you have head trauma hormone syndrome. I said, you feel to me like you have PMS. He goes, that's what my girlfriend said. I said, well, you need to get some help for it. And sure enough, they took, he went to some place that understands head trauma and hormone and got on some hormones to straighten himself out. And then he was fine.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Great. That is amazing. That's wonderful that you can do that and help people and use your skill for that. But
right.
I love that. Here's the thing, which I love the most, is because this is very rare, at least in my finding out, but I haven't done too much research on it. You consider yourself a Cowgirl Shaman. Please explain what that means.
Well, I've been a horse person my whole life. I started riding when I was 9, and then I showed horses professionally, even as a junior rider. And so I've been in horses my whole life, and I'm in Nevada, so I'm a cowgirl. I know how to work cattle and all that stuff. I've given up roping because it's too hard on my shoulder. But I've been a horse person my whole life. And being a shaman to me is being a healer. It's a healer who is also connected with the other realms. And so I think that perfectly describes what I do in my work. And it's very catchy, and I've actually trademarked it and copyrighted it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my logo.
Yeah, I saw that on your website, which I'll have the link to for my spooky friends to take a look at.
Yeah.
But you're not only with horses, you do other pets.
I do all pets. I even do exotics.
Oh, okay. So you mean exotics like tigers or what?
Like the big cats and elephants. I've done readings on elephants.
Wow. And how do you have to be in the location, or can you do it from? Wow. Okay. So
no,
how
I
does
do it
that
all
work?
remotely. I did a couple readings this week in Australia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was that for a pet or for a person?
It was for nonverbal autistic kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I think is so beneficial. I don't know if you've heard of the telepathy tapes, but it's one of the highest rated podcasts. Kai Dickens, the producer, has taken it upon herself to prove that autistic kids are telepathic. And I want to go, well, of course they are, because I worked with them for 35 years. I mean, that's how I found out I was intuitive and telepathic, as I heard a nonverbal child back in 1990.
Wow.
When that happened. Yeah.
Wow. And, autism is a big subject nowadays. A lot of people are being misdiagnosed in something, with, I don't know, ADHD or ADD or whatever you want to say. Have you ever had an opportunity to work with someone who's been misdiagnosed and be like,
oh, sure.
And how do you go about dealing with them?
I just share the information that I get that I'm picking up. It's more, ADHD than being on the spectrum. And I share that information, and I also get guidance on what to do about it, which I'm so thankful for. I mean, that's such a huge blessing because, I don't have all this knowledge. I just am like the translator. I hear the information and I share it, just like, trying to fix a vehicle. I don't know vehicle parts, but I'll get what's broke.
Yeah. And I love that. Like I said, that's something I need you around sometimes. I just give you a call, I guess. So let's get back to pets here a little bit. We talked off air that our cat, Leah, died passed recently, and it really affected.
How old is she?
She was 16.
Oh, my Lord. That's old.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought.
I really like her. She feels very warm, cuddly. I think you said cuddly, but she wants to come back. So watch for her spirit to go into one of your other animals, or if you get a new kitten, she'll come back in that new kitten.
That is so interesting you said that. So a gentleman I've had on the podcast too, his name is Rob Goutreau. He's a very nice man, just like yourself. And we did a little talk about it. And he said, same thing you said. He said, yeah, I totally feel it. She's a very loving, very cuddly. So are you thinking, he told me, are you thinking I get another cat? And I said, well, my daughter wants another cat. He goes, good, get another cat. That her spirit will probably go into that cat. So don't be surprised. Don't freak out. It's going to be fine,
It's called a walk-in. That's called a walk-in. It's when both animals were alive at the same time. And then I think they just share beautifully. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I even had a friend who passed, Linda, and she walked into my horse. That was a weird one.
That was weird. So, did Linda communicate you? Like, how did you know? Like, it was her?
Well, she changed overnight like somebody flipped a switch. So all of a sudden she started doing zippers on your jacket and Velcro on your sleeves. And she had never tried that before. And obviously nobody had trained her. And she started giving facials. She says it's kisses, but it's a slime facial. It really is. Nice. And anytime I go out there after that point, I could feel Linda's presence in non-physical form. And I could hear her just cackling. She had the best laugh. She just cackled like a witch. You know what I mean? And so I had Linda's mom and brother come out, and they just stood there and bawled. I said, so I'm not crazy? You can feel her energy? And they said, yeah. And then when Linda's mom died, and I think she was like 96 or something, when Linda's mom died, it was the weirdest thing because it's like some of the energy of Linda left. It's not as dense as it was. Isn't that weird?
That is strange.
Yeah.
That's something I'm just fascinated with how things work and everything with the soul and universe and all these things.
But
So
it's just still energy. It's just all energy. So you like to talk about ghosts and things.
Yeah.
And there's even a movie called it's something about ghosts or talking with ghosts, and they're talking about how beneficial it is, to talk to ghosts. My question is, what are you talking about? And here's why. When we're 99% energy, we're only 1% physical, right? So when we lose our shell, we return to being pure positive energy. So only the positive stuff can go with us when we go to the other side, which is just a frequency, not a place, right? So everything negative, unfinished business, pain, suffering, regrets, all of that stuff gets shed off and left behind in the earthly realm. Well, in cases of lots of anger or rage and that kind of thing, that energy can coalesce or congeal and actually take on form or substance. So that's what causes like poltergeists and apparitions and all the scary stuff. That's what all the scary stuff is. Because again, it's just freaking energy, right?
Yes.
So some mediums do not have discernment. They do not have the ability to tell the difference between positive and negative energy. They don't even think about it. They get energy, they read it, and they share it as gospel. You have one famous medium that wrote a book called Unfinished Business. You have another TV medium that wrote a book called Regrets. When they're doing that, when they're getting the negative stuff, I'm sorry, but they're dumpster diving. They're not communicating with the beautiful spirit of the person or the animal on the other side. They're in the garbage that was left behind in the earthly realm. And I think that's really important to know. I can't even use the word ghost because I'd have to go, well, what are you talking about? The garbage that was left behind or the person on the other side? I want to know. I want to be discerning when I do that. Isn't that something?
I love that. And that's something that, by the way, I'm almost finished with your book, The Physics of Mediumship by Terri Jay. She's also wrote Intuitive Communication and 7 Easy Steps to Develop Your Intuitive Ability. All great books on her website that I highly recommend getting. And I was reading your section about ghosts. And so here's something that I always, because I've talked to numerous paranormal investigators.
Oh, sure.
And stuff like that. And it's funny that you mentioned dumpster diving and kind of the garbage and everything, but here's something that I always found, like when they go to certain places, and if you don't have an answer for this, that's fine, or maybe you do. Well, you go to certain places like a jail or an asylum where it's full of death, anger, fear, people are just scared and on and on and on, just emotion packed. Every emotion you can think of, negative, maybe a little positive, but mostly negative, packed in there. And you go in there and you say, hey, can someone communicate with me? Mostly it's respectful, which is good. Could you please communicate with me who's in here? And they'll get an EVP. Sometimes not great, sometimes good. So how do you think these spirits want to, when they do get information, how do they want to communicate with us in a negative and positive way? I just think that's interesting, how they communicate.
The first thing that they screw up on when they're ghost hunting, so to speak, is that any information that's going to come through to them, I want to grit my teeth when I say that, is going to be telepathic. Okay? So if it's going to be telepathic, their conversation mentally is going to sound like this. Hey, did you, what about, are you going to, it's that fast. If you ask a whole sentence like, can you come out and communicate with me? You've already missed the communication because it's all telepathic. So that's the first way that they really screw up. They really do because they've missed it. It should be like, hey, okay, so wait, well, what about, okay, it's that fast that you're going to get the information. And we know they're doing it for the filming, that they're putting out this, and they go, why are you here? Why are you stuck? Why haven't you moved on? And that's just crap. It's just crap. And you can clear any space by burning Epsom salts and Everclear. You can clear out that negative energy, burning Epsom salts and Everclear, yeah. The salt crystals attract the negative energy, and the Everclear allows it to burn. And you can clear any space that's, haunted.
So why does everyone use sage then?
That's a Native American custom,
Right.
tradition. Yeah, it's Native American.
Right. But it just seems to me like, I don't know. There's another thing too where people feel the spirit because it takes, obviously, I don't know if you agree with this or not, a lot of energy to get the message out, right? So do you agree with that or not? Because there's been some, let's be honest, some things where you kind of go, oh, that's pretty interesting. The way this, whatever it is, a message, maybe a picture, whatever it is, a video. Do you believe in that, or do you think that's just something else?
I believe it's all energy, because everything is physics, right? So, if you're going to see an apparition, that's just energy. It's just physics. So, it'd be the same thing as if you were, communicating with a person who's a non-physical energy being.
Okay. And what would you say how to do it right?
Well, the big thing is that if you're in a place that is so-called haunted, all you're going to pick up on is the negative energy garbage that was shed off by somebody. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get, the person as they are on the other side. They're all happy campers.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a good way to determine what you're connected to or who you're connected to by feeling in. Are you picking up something negative or are you picking up something positive? I have coffee with my mom every morning, 8:00. Because when she was alive, we had a phone call. She lived in Vegas, and every morning, 8:00, we'd get on the phone. And she's so cute because she still goes, "What are we doing today?" And I go, "What do you got, a mouse in your pocket?" That's our discussion. Anybody that I connect to that's passed, they're so easy to get because you're coming at them with love. Oh, and then they can relay all kinds of silly things. And it's fun where my client knows it's them. And it's really fun too because I call it the golden finger because it's like I see a finger tapping on something for me to pay attention to it. And I go, okay, I got it. And one time I'm watching TV, which I do very little. And it was a Kraft macaroni and cheese commercial. And I'm hearing blue box, blue box. Okay, blue box. So I just filed it away. The next day I'm doing a crossing over reading. And this gal is missing her friend who died. And I said, I don't get this. I said, he's jumping around the kitchen and he's got a blue box of Kraft macaroni and cheese in each hand. She starts bawling. She goes, oh my God, Terri, that's the only thing he ever cooked for me.
Wow.
So I get the guidance the day before. Remember this. Same thing as I was on Facebook and they had an article about the hyoid bone and it's under the horse's jaw.
Okay.
I swear I've had 10 horses with hyoid bone problems since I was shown that article and told to read it. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. And like I said, that's always a great message that you're giving. That's why I love to have your guests like you on here is a lot of people, like, how do you deal with when you're talking to someone and they're saying to you, Terri, I feel that my husband is suffering. I can feel his pain, and they're so adamant about that. Maybe that really is happening, but like, how do you go about that when someone asks you like, oh, I know he's suffering. What can I do to help him?
I just give him that 2-minute physics lesson that nothing negative can go with him to the other side.
Really? Speaking of communication.
Yeah. Somebody's daring to walk down our street.
Oh, yeah, I hear that. Now, let me ask you do you believe in spirit guides?
I call them guides.
Okay.
I don't like that everybody uses soul, spirit, and they overuse those words and they just don't have one concrete meaning. So I just use guides. I say guides or guidance. They don't have names. I know who they are. They make me pay attention. I have a gay guide who tells me what to wear every day. Thank you for this. He's adorable. He's freaking adorable. Wear this and you'll look fabulous. I love this guy, whoever he is. If I go in the kitchen to make something new, I hear my guide who sounds like she's from Minnesota. Everything's, yeah, you betcha. I just love that. And so my job is just to listen. That's my job to my guides and to guidance. But I don't name them. They don't have names. To me, it's just, I lump them all together.
Yeah. Yeah, and what one of the things is with spirits or whatever you want to say, well, how people name them. How do you think people should bring them into their lives? Because I know I have a couple of friends who they don't laugh at me about it. But by the way, I have 4 spirit guides, and I'm trying to get in tune with them. I'm working on it. But anyway,
Listen faster. Because you get
listen
a mental
faster.
question and you think, I wonder, and then you've got to get your whole sentence out in your brain. And so you've missed their response. Because that's the same kind of thing. It doesn't matter if you're talking with people who are non-physical or animals that are non-physical or animals or autistic kids. Everything is telepathic and it's going to be over the top. So stop getting so much into your question and just get like, hey, I wonder, and then you'll hear the answer that fast. Listen faster is the guidance I would tell everybody.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that many people who teach this don't teach that. And it's the most critical, important part of this.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Man,
And the other thing too, gratitude is so freaking important. When you hear something and you know it's coming from guidance, give thanks for it. Thank you. I hear you. Thank you so much. And I got to tell you, my experience is that angels do not give us messages.
Okay.
They come in, save your hiney as much as is in your best interest, and they're gone that fast. They come in, save you, bye. And so many people are saying messages from angels. And it's like, no, that's guides. And they want to argue with me about it. And I'll go, here's the deal. If you heard something and you said, are you my angel? Your guides are going to go, yeah, okay, that's the ticket, right? And then it's like, are you the Archangel Michael? Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm the Archangel Michael. And the whole thing is because you're finally listening. That's why that happens. And so people believe they're getting messages from angels and it's all guides. Because like I said, angels have one function. Save your honey, goodbye. That's it.
That's really so let's flip to the other side.
Okay.
Do you believe there's evil in the world and why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I believe we have connection to source and lack of connection to source. It's that simple. Is that people that are evil, that do bad things, they're going to get bad karma anyway. So I don't believe in actual, like what you would, I mean, there are people that do horrible things and it's terrible, but I just believe they don't have a connection to source.
Okay.
Because when you feel, and this is why, when you feel that incredible unconditional love from source, when you're tapped into source energy and you feel that unconditional love, you only have a desire for good stuff and good things and good for everybody. Because that unconditional love is so overwhelming. It's life-changing.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I don't mean to bring this down or anything like that, but you've heard of stories where people have physically been what they call possessed, have done evil things. So why, if there's good spirit guides and angels, why can't there be evil spirit guides and evil angels making us do terrible stuff? Like, you see what I'm saying? I mean, there's got to be a balance.
Most of those is serious psychiatric cases. That's it.
Okay.
Really. Because think about it. You know, I've heard about people, oh, yeah, they put them in a psych ward because they were hearing voices. And I want to go, why? Well, they were hearing voices. Okay, I hear voices all day, every day. And the difference is I'm a very happy person. I love helping people, and I'm a responsible person that takes care of whatever needs to be taken care of. That's the difference. If you get somebody who can't be responsible for themselves, that's a serious mental health issue, and we do not take care of mental health issues in this country.
That is for sure. This, by the way, I'm huge into mental health, and this episode will probably air during May Mental Health Month. We should have more than 1 month, in my opinion, but that's a whole different podcast.
Right. It should be every month.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Here's 2 things and here's my second tangent. 2 things I've heard, and this is just something I heard and read an article about this. So the Pope's exorcist, and I know you're probably rolling your eyes. The Pope's exorcist has said that he believes 98% of times they go on an exorcism, which that has happened many, many times. There are records of this. He believes there's some type, to your point, mental health issue. But the 2%, he cannot explain. and priests cannot explain. And not only priests, you do not, like I've been told by priests and other people, you do not have to be a priest to do an exorcism. It's just the fact that they have the skills and the knowledge and the training, and they have the power, and it's similar to you, have the skills and the gifts and everything that everyone can do. However, it helps, right? So here's my thing. This goes back to, again, Terri, that 2%. There's still 2%.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Do we still have that word manifestation? So if you get somebody who's mentally ill or if you believe in demonic possession, you can manifest demonic possession. See, there has to be the belief, the thoughts and the feelings. And if somebody goes around long enough going, oh, I'm possessed. Oh, I'm possessed. Oh, it's a demon. I have a demon inside of me. If they tell themselves that enough, or other people tell them that, which happens a lot. I've heard parents call their child a demon child. Do you know how damaging that is?
Yes.
So to me, they've manifested it in some way, either by their consciousness or their subconscious. They've manifested it.
So here's something, I'm going to do an episode on it, because at first I kind of believed it, and then I'm like, oh boy, when you find out more. And you're enlightening me, by the way. You have great knowledge, and I totally appreciate it. So the Warrens, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They were a couple who went out and they basically supposedly did all these exorcisms and, different things. They have a section of their house which has cursed items in it. One of the cursed items in it is a doll called Annabelle. It is, me and you are roughly around the same age. We know Raggedy Ann and Andy.
Sure.
Maybe we played with them. Maybe our grandma and grandpa gave us it as a present. Is possessed by the devil. And I did more research into it and more things into it. And it obviously turned out to be a fraud. However, there are people who say that is not a fraud. But they made millions, Terri.
Sure.
They have movies, The Conjuring 2, specials, documentaries. I know you're trying to get a show. They had a show. They had all this stuff.
Sure.
How does that affect you? You know what I mean? Because you're talking about garbage. You ignore it. And why?
Because it's not in my belief system. I don't want to give it any energy. You give energy to stuff, you give focus on it. It's like people that are cancer survivors. They should never use the C word again as long as they live.
Yeah. Right.
And yet they all say I'm a cancer survivor and I'm cancer free and it's my anniversary of being cancer free. And then cancer goes, you wanted us to come back? Because they're so focused on the C word, it'll come back.
Yeah, right.
So the universe hears what you're focused on, not the yes or no.
Yes.
We have to remember that.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing, just on that same note, cancer awareness causes breast cancer. Proven. Okay. It's proven.
Oh, really?
Because it puts women into fear. Oh my God, I better go get checked. I think I feel a lump, right?
Yeah.
And then, energy healing is so important. Anytime you get a terrible diagnosis, you've got to do energy healing. You've got to find the emotional cause of the issues in the tissues, right? Mm-hmm. And release it. And I have so many clients that were given terminal diagnosis that are still here 20, 25 years later and fine, because not only did they do whatever allopathic medicine, recommended, but they also did energy healing to release the cause. That's so important.
Yeah. That's just amazing. So here are my questions I'm going to ask you that maybe you've gotten before, Terri, that I don't know, maybe they're probably, you've heard them enough, you can answer them, but this would be really hard for me. So have you ever got a question while you're doing a reading, talking to someone, having a conversation, and they say to you, Terri, what is my purpose or path in this lifetime? How would you answer?
I love that question.
Okay.
I love that question.
Okay.
What we forget is that we are source energy in a meat suit. We are. God is in every cell of our body. Okay. So we are not separate from our source. The creator intends to create. It's why we have what we do, like the earth, the planets, the universe. And you have to have the intention to create. So all of us are imbued with the energy of the creator. So what we're supposed to do is create our own life. You can't create if you're non-physical, which is why we come into physical forms in order to create. What we decide to create depends on us. And the key is to find out what you're passionate about and figure out how to make a living with it. And that's been easy for me because I've been passionate about horses my whole life. And I'm still working with them and still riding too. Even though I'm older than dirt, I'm still riding.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
So it's too simple, isn't it?
I know, but it's complicated to some people, right?
Well,
It's
because they haven't found their passion. That's the key, is find out what you're passionate about and then figure out how to make a living doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you, here's a second question for you. Have you ever gotten this one? Are there any unresolved matters from my past that are impacting my present?
Oh, that's a good one. You just have some childhood crap. Because, we're born powerful. We've just come from source. We know we're here to create. Even though we're helpless, we're powerful. And then little by little, people tell you can't. You're a boy, you're a girl, you're too stupid, you're too ugly. And so by the time we hit puberty, we feel like crap. We have no self-esteem. And so what we need to do, in a real easy tool to use, is think about who took your power, whether it's parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, people you've dated, bosses, whoever it is who you feel has taken your power. You write them a letter and you tell them off, and then you burn it. And you burn it while you're saying, nobody's ever going to treat me like that again. And that's how you take your power back.
I love that.
And that's like the only thing that prevents us from manifesting what we want, is either our belief system or, thoughts and feelings not being in alignment, or we haven't taken our power back.
I love that. I love
Isn't that amazing?
It is. It's totally amazing. One of the things I said to my wife one time, by the way, I suffer from depression. It's been part of my family history forever. I've worked with, and want to continue to work on it. And having conversations with you, Terri, and other people like yourself is amazing. It makes me feel better. It gives me the power and everything. But one thing I said, and I've gone to therapy and stuff like that. One of the things I said was, I would like for people to tell me they're sorry. I want people in my life who have treated me like shit to come to me and they say, John, I'm sorry. I should have never treated you that way. For whatever reason, I truly apologize. And I want you to know that. And I remember my wife telling me, she goes, that's never going to happen.
That's right.
But, right?
They probably don't even know they hurt you.
Yes. So I think what you said about writing a letter, I actually did something very similar to that. I just started writing things out and just saying, Dear Joe.
No.
You
say, dear you stupid MFer asshole. That's what you say.
Oh, I would change that. Okay.
Don't be nice.
All
this
right.
is for you to get it out. And the interesting thing is, if they're on the other side, they won't know you're doing it because they can't perceive anything negative in the earthly realm.
Right.
So you got to get out of jail free card.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to share is, if I handed you a blank piece of paper and said, here, can you go burn this paper? You wouldn't have a problem. But if I handed you 5 $100 bills and said, here, go burn this, you'd have a problem, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. The difference is, when you put printing on the paper, when you put writing on the paper, you change the freaking energy of the paper. So you're taking the garbage out of you, putting it on that paper when you're writing them a letter. And this is why it's so important to burn it. You've got to burn it, because then when you're transmuting the negative energy and sending it to the ethers, it no longer.
Oh, okay.
The other thing I would do too, Joe Dispenza, he's freaking brilliant, but he's got a really good video called Evolve Your Brain. And that video really helped my depression. And the key to it is, the minute you feel depressed, you think of something you're grateful for, because gratitude changes brain chemistry instantly. That's proven. So the more grateful you are, the more you get into gratitude, the less depression you're going to have, probably.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that before. And that's
But you're not doing it.
I know I'm not doing it. I know I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's something I have to continue to work on and get better.
Just put gratitude signs up all over where you live. Just put gratitude. Just put them up all over to remind you.
I love that. I will do that. That's something, again, anything to help me with that and to stop. I've had conversations where I beat myself up. Not physically, obviously, but mentally, right? You just beat I'm an idiot, and I've never done that. And what?
Okay, but here's the thing. You're forgetting that you're God energy in a meat suit. So if God appeared in human form in front of you, would you treat God the way you treat you?
Well, no.
Probably not a good idea, right?
No.
So you're precious because you're not separate from your source.
I love that.
So you have to choose to love yourself a 10 the way that source does.
Yeah.
And that's like flipping a light switch. It is.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
stand by a light switch and flip it up and love yourself and flip it down and hate yourself. You can. You can do that.
Yes.
So your chore then is to keep the switch up.
Yeah.
And remember, you're a human being, not a human doing.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Oh, thank you, Terri. That makes me
You're
feel so
welcome.
much better. Now,
Yeah.
let me ask you this too. Has anyone ever come to you to this question and said, do you believe in free will, and how does it intersect with your, readings or your conversation?
Yeah, we have free will. That's a given. So we're always making choices. And the thing that we forget is there's consequences for our choices. That's what we forget. There's consequences.
Yeah.
So we're either going to have a positive consequence or a negative consequence. So yeah, we have free will, but do we want the consequences? That's the question we have to answer.
Yeah. And so here is it, and I probably already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
What do you do with people who say, Terri, you know what? I flipped that switch. I was positive. I was everything. And my life is still in the dumpster. Come on. You know, give me my money back kind of attitude. How do you handle that?
It's usually because they're in what's called, I hate to even say this, they're in negative pleasure. They're enjoying being miserable.
Then why would you? I guess.
I was in negative pleasure. When somebody told me I was in negative pleasure, oh my God, I got so pissed off.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't even, that's bullshit. I'm not enjoying being miserable. And it was like, well, yeah, you are, because if you really hated being miserable, you'd change it.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you change it though? Other
Choices.
than what you told me.
You choose how you think and how you feel. And the thing that pisses me off is we're choosing how we think and how we feel in every freaking minute.
Yeah.
Every minute we're making choices about how we think and how we feel.
Yes.
That's a big responsibility. It's like, adulting 101.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I've heard people tell me. It's really hard to be a good person nowadays.
No, that's not true.
How do you explain that?
That is not true.
Okay.
I can't be, I have people say, how come you're happy all the time? And how come you're so nice all the time? I'm like the opposite of a Karen. I go into places and I go, listen, I have a problem. Can you help me, sweetie pie? It's not like, you need to help me because I'm entitled. I'm the opposite. It's how can I make your job easier? The big thing, and this is one of the things I use all the time is kindness. Always kind. Always kind.
Yes.
Always. No matter how pissed off I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't understand why people need to do that. I spent years in retail as a retail manager, and I saw the ugly side of human beings.
Sure.
They're just returning a shirt that faded in the wash, and it was like they lost their children in a fire. And I'm like, what? And I would always look at them, and this was wrong at this time, but I'd always look at them and be like, no, I'm not taking that back because I don't like your attitude. So you're stuck with that. You're gonna keep it. When the people would come in like you and say, hey, sweetie, yeah, I put this in the wash. Maybe I put it in a little too long, but could you help me with this? Because it shouldn't still be faded, right?
Right.
Or something like, I really appreciate your help. I would always go to them, absolutely, let me take a look at it. You're absolutely right. Let's find another shirt for you. Or maybe I'll just give you your money back and maybe you have to go to a different place. Maybe this is not the shirt, right? And I always tell that people now when they're going to return something, like I'll be at work and they know I'm a retail manager, used to be a retail manager, and they'll be like, hey, John, I tried to return this and they wouldn't take it back. You said they would. And I'm going, well, what'd you do? Well, I was kind of mad. There you go.
That's right.
You have to go, and before you go in and be like, I'm going to calm, I'm going to be nice, I'm going to be kind. And I said, if you do that, 99%, there's always going to be that little, 1% of people, nothing you can do about it. They're going to take it back. So I said, go back and say that. And they got it back.
We have to set our intention.
Yeah.
And my intention is always to be kind. Always.
Yeah. Because it's like, again, if you're not, everything feeds off, we've all been
That's right.
places, right, where your vibration, energy, again, where you've been in a room and everybody's mad about something. They're all
Right.
angry. And that just
Sure.
feeds and it grows. And before
Yep.
you know it, people are yelling and fighting. And
That's
you're
right.
like, if we just went into that room with it, okay, this is a tough situation. We got to get through this together. We're going to get through this together. Let's everybody just calm down and let's, no.
Right.
I mean, come on, people.
It's
It's
really
pretty
a
obvious.
matter of setting intention and being authentic. And no matter how I feel, I'm always kind. Always.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Even
So
if I
here's
don't want to be. And if somebody's rude to me,
mm-hmm.
I go, are you okay? And a lot of times they'll just break down into tears. I go,
Yeah.
what's wrong? Is there anything I can do to help? And we're talking about people in a retail setting, because if they start getting mad at me, I know I'm not the object of their anger. It's like, are you okay? Can I help you? And oh my God, somebody listening? Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Right. Have you
We just have
ever
to learn we need to learn to be more kind.
Absolutely. So that being said, before we wrap up here, has there ever been a time, Terri, where you had somebody that was just so low and so negative, and did you ever tell them just, I can't help you? Has there ever been a time like that?
When somebody's in resistance, when I'm telling them the things they can do, I always want to give my clients tools. I don't want to create dependencies. Hey, you want to come back next week? No, I never do that. That's unethical too.
Okay.
So I always want to try to give people tools so that they can manage their own life. And so there's been times when no matter what I say, you can tell they're in resistance, they're in negative pleasure, and they really don't want answers. They want to just bitch. And there are times when I will just end a reading. I just did it the other day. This gal I said, the way my thing works is on energy. The energy's got to flow. Don't hold anything back. And so she's talking to me about her dog. And I said, this dog feels seriously ill to me. She goes, well, we're going to put him down Tuesday. That information would have been more helpful in the beginning than now.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean? She was holding back. And I'm going, how do I tell this to her? This dog is dying. And she already had a euthanasia scheduled. So it was very uncomfortable for me because I felt like she was not being truthful. Right. And that's negative energy, right?
Absolutely.
So that's one of those cases where I ended it.
Have you done that a lot, or have you done it?
No, most people are so great to work with. And I have clients I've had for 25, 30 years.
I love that.
Same clients, Terri, don't yell at me. I got a new horse. I need you to look at her.
I love that. I
know, it's so fun. It's so fun.
Before we go, I saved the best for last. One of the things is you were on a TV show, Paul T. Goldman. So tell me about that.
Well, I was in the documentary part and I played myself, and Dee Wallace played me in the drama series. So her and I are
on my list to watch, by the way.
No, don't watch it. No. Well, the premise of the show is there's this guy named Paul T. Goldman, and I think he called me like in 2005. And he said, Terri, I just got married. He goes, and my wife is insisting on having her name put on all of my assets. She's really insistent. And I said, God, this is really weird. She feels like a hooker. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, but she doesn't want the money on the dresser. She wants your stuff. And he goes, it's my wife. I said, I don't care. I said, she feels like a hooker. Yeah. And then I said, wait a minute. She's not there all the time, is she? Well, no, she has to take care of her grandmother who has Alzheimer's on the weekend. So she's gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I said, no, she's hooking. Yeah. And she was. He hired a private detective. And the detective found out that she was, in fact, a hooker, a madam, and into sex, what do you call it?
Trafficking?
Sex trafficking and passport fraud.
Yeah, my gosh.
Yeah, but the show kind of whitewashed. I'm not allowed to talk bad about it, but they kind of whitewashed it. And I was wrong for bilking Paul out of thousands of dollars, which isn't going to happen, not at 50 and 90. Oh, I'm so rich now. Woo!
Yes, you're rolling in it, Terri. You're rolling.
And I don't allow codependencies. Like, the most people can do is like two sessions a month. That's it.
Okay. So speaking of that, again, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening. amazing, transformative. I can't keep using words here. I'm going to run out of words. But it has been great. So let me ask you this. Someone gets a hold of you. How do they start? How do you start a good session with them? What do they need to tell you? We kind of walked through some of those things, but if you can kind of go over them again.
Sure. On my website, you can actually pick your day and time, pay, and then you can fill out this form. So I have your name and phone number, contact information. For places that are out of the country, I usually use WhatsApp, to do the call, which is so easy. When I get the information, I'll confirm it and say, okay, I'll call you that day and time. And then I'll call them and we just chit chat for a minute. And then I just say, so how can I help? I start every reading that way because I'm bombarded with information as soon as I connect to them. And I want to help them with what they want help with, not just what I'm getting, because it may or may not be appropriate. And they also may not be ready to hear stuff, right? Can you imagine if I go, hey, can we talk about your molestation when you were a toddler? And they have no memory of it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always want to be helpful and appropriate. So I always say, how can I help? And then they'll say, I have a dog. And I go, what's the dog's name? How old is the dog? What's going on? Give me some, background. And then boom, I've got the dog. And then I'll tell what I'm getting from the dog or the cat or the horse. And then if they want to talk to somebody who's passed, which is so much fun because everybody on the other side is such a happy camper.
Yes.
It's really funny because I have to tell them, I said, I have the biggest grin on my face. I said, this guy is so freaking funny. Oh my God, he missed his calling. He should have done comedy. No. And I just get these impressions and then I share what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it goes. And then they can ask as many questions as they want. And, I'll do as many subjects as they want too. There's other people that do like horses and they charge $50 a horse in a reading. Yeah. It's like if you change subjects and, hey, can we talk to this horse too? It's another $50. And I think that's obscene. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you want the, person or your client, whatever you want to call, to get out of your sessions? What is the biggest thing? So people would see this and go like, I want to reach out to Terri, but I don't know, what do I get out of this? I mean, really?
Usually they get homework.
Homework.
They're going to get homework. Yeah. Because I want to empower people. Empowerment is so critical. And I want to give them the tools so that they can become empowered. Mm-hmm. And so that's a biggie for me is I say, okay, you've got to, watch this movie or download this ebook or get my book. Sometimes I'll do that. I just want to give them the tools because we only have a half hour, an hour. We're not going to cover everything. We're going to try, but we're not going to cover everything. So I want to give them that stuff so that they can start training themselves and learn to become empowered and happy and abundant and healthy too.
Yeah.
So, each one is going to vary as far as, how it's going to go. But the nice thing is, and I just, oh God, it makes me feel so good because they tell me, they go, oh my goodness, I feel so much better. I feel so much lighter. I love that one because they let go of the garbage in the reading. So it's really good. It's very seldom when you go, well, this was a waste of time. I mean, I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't get that either. So tell my audience what's coming up. What do you want them to look forward to or check out on your website or social media sites?
I'm very political on my first Facebook page, on the Terri Jay page. I am not political at all on the Terri Jay Cowgirl Shaman page. And I'm always looking for people to follow on the Terri Jay Cowgirl Shaman page. And I'm going to start doing little bitty videos about, what's going on with me. And I'm trying to start a YouTube channel. I'm trying to find somebody that'll partner with me for that. They have to be local to the Carson Valley area or Northern Nevada area. I'm just one valley east of Tahoe. That's where I live. And I'm also pitching a TV show. I've got a meeting with a producer coming up. I've got another producer who's trying to arrange a meeting. So the TV show is really going to be coming together, and I can't wait for that because it's going to be so much fun. Because every time I do a reading on an animal, which is what they scheduled me for, I do the reading on the animal, and then I go, can we talk about your stuff? Because here's what I'm getting. So it happens almost every time.
Yeah. I love that. And again, thank you so much for taking time out here. I'm blessed to know you. And, I hope I can have you on again sometime.
Anytime. I love doing this. I love sharing this information and also correcting so much of the BS that's out there. Oh my God.
Yeah, what I did last year, maybe I'll do it this year too, Terri, if you'd be interested. I had a roundtable of mediums and clairvoyants, and they were all talking about their, situations they've been in and trying to help people. We didn't do live readings or anything like that. We just had a nice conversation of how they do it versus how they do it, and they had, well, I think it's this. And it was just an amazing, amazing time because everyone became friends after it, and they were like, oh, I do this and I do that. And they kind of specialize in their own little areas per se.
Sure.
And so maybe I'll let you know if I do that again, because I had a great time and my audience had a great time because we let people ask questions. We just said no readings, no, we don't want to get into things. Please contact each medium after the show,
Right.
and they will gladly help you with whether it be a pet, whether it be developing your skills, whether it be talking to a lost love or whatever you want to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was just on a podcast and they said, can we ask you questions? Can you do a reading live? And I went, yeah. And they said, well, you'll really do it live? Yeah. And they said, well, nobody else will. And I went, why? What are they afraid of?
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to remember that. Maybe we'll have to do that. I'll have to bring you on and do a reading. I had one though, Terri, and it went really well, but it was so personal. I decided not to air it. The medium was a really great medium, and we're friends now because I've had her on the show a couple of times. And she asked me, I'll just do one because she know I was kind of feeling. She says, John, there's something off about you tonight. Can I do a reading? I think it's something off. And it was around my mom's birthday, and we started to do one because my mom's been dead for about 4 years now, but I love my mom so much. And we started talking, and she was like, your mom's trying to communicate to you right now, and she's saying everything's okay. Don't worry. She says she loves you and you'll be fine. It just kind of developed into that, but I didn't put it out because I was like, you got into other personal stuff, and I'm like, I couldn't do it. But that doesn't mean I won't if it doesn't, to get too personal with my family and my health situation.
I'm also very respectful of people's privacy too. Yeah. Just like I told you, let's talk about your sexual abuse. No.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So again, thank you, Terri. I am blessed to know you, and you are one of my friends right now because everyone's been on this show. It's always my friends. And when this episode comes out, like I said, it will come out during Mental Health Awareness, and I will have all the different, for my spooky friends out there, have all the different links and everything. Please reach out to Terri. She is a wonderful, loving, caring person who's going to listen to you and going to do the right thing by you. And that's, sometimes I know it's hard for you want to do that, but believe me, like Terri said, you're going to feel better. Even if you have one session with her and, maybe it's too much, that's okay. Who knows? But, I think Terri will handle you professionally and courteously and do everything in her power to make your life better. So, I love it.
That's what I try to do.
Thank you, Terri.
Thanks for having me.
Again. This was so much fun.
All righty. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Terri. Bye-bye.
Bye.